Hey, Louie! 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 Hey. X-27, X-27, this is Max. About that stolen cab the dispatcher had on the air. It's found by White Hill Cemetery on the Blake Road. I spotted the license. Louie ain't here. I'll deliver my customer and come right back to Blake Road.
Called me just before I got into bed. A disturbance in an exclusive apartment house might fit into the case I was working on. A case the newspapers called Terror on Dark Street. My name is Frank Ballinger, Detective Lieutenant, M Squad, a special detail of the Chicago Police. We had varying descriptions of a big, wild-eyed, badly scarred man who had been terrorizing people in the Dark Street area. The neighborhood was in a panic. People were afraid to go out at night. Now there was a suspicion that the man we wanted had entered the apartment of Thomas Bonsell, a wealthy architect.
Frank, there's no doubt now that there was a struggle of some kind in here. Mr. Carmody here lives next door, and he heard it.
Oh, yes, I saw the man. It's just like the newspaper said. A big man, staring eyes, scars all over his face.
Well, how'd you come to see him?
Well, first of all, there was a lot of loud talk in this room. Two men were having an argument. I guess one was Mr. Bonsell. Then there was a scream, and then a lot of pounding on our kitchen wall.
Pounding on the wall?
Yes, and my wife and I had about enough of that.
Oh, then you came over and knocked on the door.
Yes, well, I started to open the door, but when I opened the door to the rear service hall, there he was, this man. Well, he just looked at me and went back into the Bonzell's kitchen and slammed the door in my face.
I don't get it, letting himself be seen. Our man always slugs the people that look at him.
Yeah, well, I went right to the phone and called the police.
Is there a Mrs. Bonsell?
Oh, yes. Well, they had a terrible fight last night, too. She left, took a suitcase with her.
You hear quite a lot, don't you, Mr. Carmody?
Well, we can't help it. They're always quarreling.
Well, thank you very much for helping us, Mr. Carmody.
Yes, well, if you'll excuse me, I'll just go right through the kitchen.
Certainly. I don't get it. The man we're looking for always snatches women's purses or men's wallets, but always in the street. It doesn't figure that he'd risk breaking into 10th floor apartments.
Well, he did, and he was seen. Mrs. Bonsell?
Yes. The janitor downstairs told me while you were here. Has anything happened to Tom?
Well, we don't know. Can you tell me where you've been?
Yes, I've been visiting friends in Wilmette. I just came from the station. What has happened here?
Well, we don't want to worry you unnecessarily, Mrs. Bonsell, but does your husband have any enemies?
None that I know of.
Mr. Carmody said that he saw a man.
The janitor told me. Tom doesn't know anyone like that. More likely, Tom and some friend were drinking, and they've gone out to some tavern.
Well, there was a fight here, Mrs. Bonsell.
Please, I don't want any of this to get into the newspapers. My family's never been involved in anything like this. Tom will be home in a few hours.
Mrs. Bonsell, would any of your friends have it in for your husband?
What are you implying? Oh, Mr. Carmody again. He always listens. Naturally, husbands and wives have disagreements. I walked out last night, but I came back. There's never been a divorce in our family, and there's not going to be one now.
We do have to ask questions. You understand that?
Of course. I'm very tired. I'll have to ask you gentlemen to leave. I'll phone you as soon as Tom gets home.
Well, please do that. Charlie, Jack? But Tom Bonsell didn't come home, and we began looking for him. 48 hours of intensive investigation. combing taverns near his home, calling on his friends, and checking the usual routine for a missing person failed to yield a single clue to his whereabouts.
Well, the papers know more than we do. They say the terror of Dark Street got Bonsell. I don't know, Frank. This could be a hoax. You know, it wouldn't be the first time a husband staged something like this to run out on his wife.
I don't know. Bonsell wasn't the type to run away. I talked to his partner and his attorneys. He was a rich man. He'd be running away from $500,000 and all his.
Yeah.
The thing I don't get was the pounding on the wall. Why? That's almost like asking for attention.
Well, I think I buy Carmody's story. He said he saw the terror.
Well, why did Bonsell go with him? They just had a fight. Unless the other man used force.
Could be. Gray speaking. Yeah, well, when did this happen? Well, you better bring him in here. Central Bureau just picked up a suspect with a scarred face. Several women saw him. One of them said he's the one who grabbed her bag on Dark Street.
Well, let's have a look at him. Charles Sotoris was 30, worked as a locksmith, and led a quiet, secluded life. He had no police record. His face scars were the result of a hand grenade explosion in Korea. He could not account for his time on the nights in question, except to say that he might have been home or working late in a shop.
That makes me the terror, I suppose. No alibis. No witnesses to prove I wasn't out stealing handbags.
Well, it doesn't help much.
Now, this woman thinks I'm the man? Well, what can I say except I wasn't there? I never saw her before, till they pulled me down here at police headquarters.
But she picked you out of a group of men.
Why not? With this face, I'm always picked. You're looking for a man with scars. Well, I've got scars. So I'm not supposed to be human?
Did you know a Thomas Bonsell?
Yeah, I've read about him. Did I make him disappear?
I don't know, did you?
No, sir. Well, I never seen him before. Only his wife. Shouldn't I admit that?
Where do you know her from?
She used to hang out in a bar in Ohio Street, the Playbill. I remember after seeing her pictures in the papers.
Did you ever talk to her?
No. She's a lush. I keep away from that kind.
You might as well send him home.
Well, I can't, Frank. They're holding him on an open charge.
Can't you see he's the wrong height, wrong complexion?
Yeah, but there's a possible identification.
Don't tell me somebody believes me.
I felt sorry for Sotoris, but he told us something new about Mrs. Bonsell. She drank to excess and spent a lot of time at the Playbill bar. I headed there to check. So far, we knew little about Esther Bonsell, a woman from a once wealthy family who'd married a currently wealthy architect. I continued dropping into the Playbill at different hours of the day. It was a hangout for whispering couples and solitary drinkers. It was 3 days before anything happened. Then a Mrs. Vinton turned out to be a close friend of Esther Bonsell. Esther had promised to meet her, but hadn't shown up. Mrs. Vinton was lonely and talkative. She talked about Esther Bonsell.
Esther just has one thing on her mind. It's an obsession with her. Sometimes I'm even afraid of her. She's obsessed. She wants to see Tom dead and in his grave. She even asked me to help her. Oh, it was quite crazy. Of course, she wasn't sober, and I was.
I'll have to ask you to come downtown. I'm a police officer.
I haven't been disorderly.
I want a statement.
Statement about what?
I'll tell you on the way down. Just get your things together, please. When Mrs. Vinton was sober, she repeated her story about Esther Bonsell's wish for her husband's death. Mrs. Vinton signed a statement, but we decided to proceed with caution and to test the information. I kept a constant check on Esther's movements.
Please stop talking about it. I was a fool when I even listened to you. And I was a fool when I married Tom against my family's wishes.
Look, my dear, the past is the past. You're a wonderful woman, and you had a wonderful family. But now I want the rest of my money.
Please keep your voice down. It'll just be a few more days.
My dear, you wouldn't be stalling
Don't
me.
call me my dear.
Oh, come off it, Esther. We made a deal and I delivered. You owe me 10,000.
I know, but Tom's money is all tied up.
Then borrow. You have friends. You're a wealthy woman now.
That detective. I'm terrified every time I talk to him.
Yes, and you're inclined to talk too much. Let me handle this situation. You stall him down here for a while.
Oh, Lieutenant.
Mrs. Bonsall?
I've never seen you around here before. Any news of Tom?
No, just you.
I beg your pardon?
Well, it seems to be an open secret that you hate your husband.
Who told you that?
You deny it?
Well, it's unfair and it's untrue. I disliked him, yes. He was a climber.
Was?
Was. Is. What's the difference?
Well, it might make a great deal of difference to Tom Bonsall.
Is Tom... Do you know if he's dead?
No, but there's a great deal of suspicion that he might be.
But who could have done it? That man they call the Terror? But why? Why?
I'm sorry I had to ask you all these questions, but under the circumstances.
I don't blame you, after all you've heard. It was spiteful gossip. You won't tell me who it was.
I'm sorry.
Well, I never wished Tom dead, and there's no boyfriend.
Boyfriend? I didn't say anything about that.
Well, you implied it the night that Tom disappeared.
Well, now that you brought it up, who was that man that left you a little while ago?
Man?
Yeah, the chap sitting next to you at the bar.
Oh, Arthur. He hangs around here. I don't even know his last name. Lieutenant, I just can't stop believing that Tom will come back.
Well, I certainly hope so. Good night, Mrs. Bonsall.
Good night, Lieutenant.
The attack on me gave us our first solid lead. Now we knew something about the man that none of the other victims had found out.
Sure those scars are manufactured, Frank?
They found traces of collodion on my sleeve where it brushed his face. And that's the stuff actors use to make scars with.
Collodion. That the stuff I used to use when I was a kid and I'd cut my hand?
Yeah, a jelly-like substance that you cover wounds with, and when it shrinks, it looks like a scar.
You realize what this means, don't you, Frank?
Yeah. The man we're looking for is wearing a phony mask. And all the eyewitness descriptions we have of him are completely worthless. So we have no idea what the man looks like that we're looking for.
Why did he jump you? I don't get that. Well, if you got an angle, Frank, let's hear it.
If I had an angle, I still wouldn't be fishing. Well, at least it lets that guy from Korea off the hook.
Oh, no, it doesn't. We let him go. Yeah, he was on the loose when you got slugged.
Hi. The same?
No, thanks. Just tell me about Esther Bonsall.
She comes in here. That's all I know about her.
Well, the way I hear it, she's a regular and a talker. What does she talk about?
She sits with the other girls. They get stoned like ladies and go home quietly.
What about the man she was in here with last night?
Arthur Princely. It's got to the point where you won't let her buy him a drink no more.
Who is he?
He's an in-and-outer. Used to be on the stage.
Well, he seemed to be pretty chummy with Mrs. Bonsall last night.
I wouldn't say so. She used to buy him a drink now and then. All the girls do. Excuse me.
Lieutenant Ballinger?
Oh, yeah, Max.
Your office told me I'd find you here.
Well, how's the hack business?
Oh, let's change the subject. If I told you, it'd ruin your whole day. You know, I would have contacted you sooner, but I've been laid up with a bug.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
You're sorry.
I had to drink the bug medicine. It's about that terror case.
Yeah?
Here's how it goes. I'm tooling down past White Hill Cemetery, and I spot this cab parked by the side gate. At night.
Go.
Well, it's one of our cabs that was stolen. Nobody in it. I called the dispatcher, dropped my passenger, highball it back to the graveyard. Vroom, vroom, vroom. No stolen cab. It's gone. They pick it up on Clark Street next day.
Well, why did somebody steal a cab to park in front of a cemetery?
With no houses across the street. You catch?
Yeah. That's worth checking into. Thanks, Max. Well, bartender, see what my friend here will have. A cemetery could be a hiding place. We went over White Hill. It was slow, cold work, systematically covering every inch of the graveyard. Hey, that end crypt, it looks like it's open. What is that, a man's shoe?
Larkin asked the superintendent to bring the keys. We want to get into this tomb.
Did you notice?
What's that?
There were traces of collodion on his shirt.
Well, that just about wraps it up. Our man, the one that attacked you, probably brought Bonsell here.
Yeah, but right now my interest is in actors. Well, here it is, 6 priors, 3 common drunk, 3 disorderly. No visible means of support. Usually works as a dishwasher, mooches drinks, and hasn't worked as an actor in over 4 years.
Well, Actors Equity says Princely lives at this address about a block from the playbill.
Let's get a search warrant. I want to take a look at his room.
Frank, you've got nothing on him.
Oh, come on. His type usually break down when you hit him with the facts.
All right. Collodion. And his makeup kit. Well, I hope you're right.
I know I'm right.
Arthur Princely, October 1951. Look, he even signed it. All right, hoist the Princely.
He can't be off the wall. He's clean.
Now, what is this all about?
Maybe this will jog your memory.
How did this get here?
No use pretending, Princely. The lab will prove whether you ever wore that coat or not.
There's your makeup kit. Collodion included.
Oh, what's wrong about that? I'm an actor.
And you've been holding up people on Dark Street.
Me, the terror? Oh, come now.
You've played the role before.
You win. I never had a show yet that didn't lay an egg. I was so broke. I was even hungry. I figured a few stick-ups and the terror would vanish.
Well, what about Tom Bonsell?
Oh, no, you're not going to pin his disappearance on me.
He came back. We found his body. We found traces of collodion on his shirt, and we can prove they came from that bottle.
I was so sure. So sure. Esther's smart. Even she bought it.
Why don't you tell us about Esther?
All right, gentlemen, I will.
Is he dead?
Yeah.
With Princely dead, we're going to have a devil of a time nailing Esther Bonsell.
She doesn't know that he's dead yet. Maybe she'll rise to a little bait. I'll notify homicide. see his bank book? A deposit of $5,000 made 3 weeks ago.
It's about the same time you started terrorizing Dark Street. Yeah? Think that $5,000 is a payoff?
I think it's a down payment. Did you see this list of expenses for a trip that he was going to take?
This comes to a lot more than $5,000.
Yeah, but it's my hunch that Mrs. Bonsall owed Arthur Princely a lot of money for some work that he did. Oh, hello, Mrs. Bonsall. Lieutenant Ballinger. Oh, fine, thank you. Look, do you know an Arthur Princely or where he lives?
Princely? I don't know any such person. Why should you ask me? Oh, the man at the playbill. Oh, yes, Arthur. Well, I don't know where he lives. He isn't a friend of mine.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Bonsall. We thought you might know. We'll locate him first thing in the morning. Let's see if she's telling the truth. Well, Murph, would you bring your book in here, please?
What's on your mind, Frank?
I'm just a shot in the dark. I want you to send this message right away. Esther, I can't wait any longer. Either you send me the rest of the money tonight, or I start trouble. But I want the rest of the money tonight.
You know, he probably contacted her by phone and never wrote to her.
But we can't imitate his voice. Oh, add this. Don't phone me with any more excuses. Type that up and don't sign it.
Frank, she's here.
Huh?
Mrs. Bonsall.
Where's Arthur?
But you don't know where Arthur lives.
Where is Arthur?
He's been and gone.
What lies has he been telling you?
May I see your purse, please, Mrs. Bonsall? There's no money. Just this. Considering what we know, you can make it easy for yourself or very difficult, Mrs. Bonsall. Your friend, Mrs. Vinton, made a statement.
She's an alcoholic and a liar.
She said that you hated your husband, that you wanted him killed.
No, she was lying.
Arthur thought so.
I was talking wildly about how unhappy I was. It was Arthur's idea. I begged him not to do it.
Yet you paid him $5,000.
He said that the police would be looking for a madman. That's why he made so much noise, to attract attention. And then the madman would disappear and there would be no connection, no one to trace, nothing to involve me.
You must have hated your husband very much.
Yes, I did. He was a nobody. Bright boy in his class that made a lot of money.
And for that you kill a man? Or was it that he was walking out on you?
Nobody walks out on me. He wanted a divorce. Said we had no marriage. But he was to blame for all my drinking, my unhappiness. My name, my family didn't mean a thing to him, not a thing.
But as his widow, you'd be very happy with his money, huh? My biggest satisfaction came from completely clearing Charles Soturis. Suspicion would have plagued the Korean War veteran for the rest of his life. But his neighbors learned that guilt is not always found in the condition of a man's face. At her trial, Esther Bonsall gave many reasons for disliking her husband in order to mitigate her crime. Only 2 were clear to a Chicago jury. He was going to leave her, and she wanted his money. For that, she was sent to prison for life.